There it is, a calmer look today outside across New Mexico. This being in Albuquerque here, a sky cam over Albuquerque right now. You can see camera's jittering a little bit. Still some winds out there after we have just seen these winds continuing to batter New Mexico over the last month. But a calmer day in terms of fire weather. But this weather is not expected to continue for long, and that's what we're looking to talk about here today on KRQE.com. What's changing, where, what you can expect. We're talking about it all online here as you get a live look at Albuquerque. And joining us here now in the KRQE News 13 digital studio is Chief Meteorologist Grant Tosterud. I'm Chris McKee here. Grant, thank you for joining us here today.
Chris, it's always a pleasure to come here and talk to you.
Yeah, and we especially love having your expertise as the weather has played such a big factor in the news that's been happening over the last month. All of these wildfires raging throughout New Mexico. Of course, people have heard a lot about the Hermit's Peak and the Calf Canyon fires. They've heard all about, as well, Cook's Peak, the Cerro Pelado, that one near Jemez Springs. It has just been a remarkable time for the weather and how that is factoring into fire danger here in the state. So hope to talk to you over the next half hour here. Maybe answer a few questions about where we're at right now, what to expect here. Also, for folks who are maybe just joining us, if you want to get involved in the conversation, we encourage you to do so. You can tweet at us. You can tweet at me. I'm at Chris McKee TV. You see Grant's Twitter tag right there is at Grant Tosterud. And you can also use those hashtags. That is, Hey Grant, Hey Chris. We have the technology to look at your hashtags and can see when you're trying to ask us questions. So, yeah, we're all about it. And Grant, I guess the first thing to maybe start with is where we're at right now. People have maybe noticed a little bit of a change here, a reprieve maybe of sorts here today.
Yeah, we're still dealing with some wind out there. We're still seeing some gusts around 20 to 30 miles per hour across parts of the state. So the wind isn't gone today, as you can still kind of see the camera shaking around outside. But the good news is it has been much quieter this afternoon than really what we've been used to. Here's a live look at some of the wind gusts we're seeing across New Mexico. In fact, here in Albuquerque, we've really been seeing some of the strongest wind gusts so far today, up really a corridor stretching from Farmington to Albuquerque down to Ruidoso, where winds have been gusting from around 25 to 30 miles per hour. Now, again, that is a big improvement over the last 24 to 48 hours when we've been seeing 35 to 45, even 50 mile per hour wind gusts, continuing to fan the flames of some of these wildfires. And not to mention the dry air has been a big concern with this. So the good news is we have the lighter winds today. The lighter winds are still going to continue into tomorrow, albeit it will still be breezy. We'll still see some gusts around 30 to 35 miles per hour, but we still get the much-needed reprieve from these winds that firefighters need up in northern New Mexico through the rest of today and into tomorrow. I'm
just looking at your graphic here right now, and I notice the wind channels, I guess is what I call it, those white lines.
The streamlines.
Yeah, they're moving a lot slower than they have over many times I've seen this graphic over the last month. So these are the current conditions out there. And obviously, you know, you had mentioned this being kind of a reprieve. This is expected to last through tomorrow as well. When are we anticipating maybe some changes here happening?
The big concern is going to be as we head into this weekend. And we'll take a look at that forecast here. Through the rest of today, again, still gusts around 30 miles per hour until the sun begins to set tonight. And the winds will be dying down. We should be seeing some calm and quiet conditions even into tomorrow morning. Like I said, tomorrow afternoon gets a bit breezier. You can see the winds switch to more of a westerly direction tomorrow afternoon, too. Again, you'll notice some wind gusts there, 20 to 30 miles per hour, still below that kind of threshold that makes us become a bit more concerned for fire danger across the state. So still some fantastic news. It's still going to be dry. May still see some isolated stronger wind gusts than that. So the fire danger is much lower than what we've been used to. Of course, it's just not gone. In fact, with any kind of wind in these dry conditions, we're not going to see the fire danger go away just yet. But what we're going to be watching is heading into this weekend. In fact, we're going to be kind of looking at yet another historic kind of wind event here across the state. Chris, I feel like we've been using this word historic when it comes to fires, when it comes to wind.
Right.
So much over the last month, at least, with all of the fires and all of the dry conditions. And we're going to be looking at potentially another historic kind of wind and fire event as we head into this weekend. And you can see Saturday afternoon there, the wind starting to pick up again across the state. They'll still out of the west. We'll see on average Saturday afternoon wind gusts around 35 to 45 miles per hour. Some isolated stronger wind gusts than that. But the big concern is going to be as we head into Sunday and Monday.
Okay.
Now, we've been seeing some major wind events in the past where we've been seeing gusts as high as 50 to 60, even 70 miles per hour. But What sets those days apart versus what we're coming up to is that has been a single day event.
Right.
We get these strong winds in the afternoon, then we finally get a little bit of relief after the sun sets at night, and the next day we kind of get the chance to breathe again and collect the pieces after what happened the day before. But this isn't going to be the case, and this is why this is almost just as concerning as those other events we had, because these winds that you see on Sunday afternoon here that are going to be gusting on average, this is an average, and I think this is really going to be the best case scenario that you're seeing right here. We'll see gusts between 45 and 55 miles per hour, but there will be some isolated wind gusts that approach 60 to 70 miles per hour Sunday and Monday afternoon. And again, the difference is that this is going to be a prolonged event. We're going to be having these kind of strong, potentially damaging wind gusts lasting multiple days. Sunday and Monday are by far going to be the windiest days, but we're going to be seeing those strong wind gusts setting up as early as Saturday and sticking with us all the way into the middle of next week for some of us. So it's looking like the highest impact days are going to be Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Okay.
The fire danger is going to be basically extreme. High is kind of the top of the category there, but I'd venture to say that it's going to be extreme because we're going to have this prolonged strong wind event. Wind damage, more power outages, down power lines, going to be a big concern as we head through the next few days, and of course blowing dust even as we head into Mother's Day and into early next week. That'll reduce visibility too.
Wow. So this is all happening amid, of course, the big fires I mentioned right off the top here that have been burning in New Mexico. There are several active wildfires across, I think it's about 5 or 6 active wildfires across 6 different counties right now. And some of the ones that we've been paying attention to include, say, the Hermit's Peak fire, 165,000 acres at this point. It's 20% contained. That started, the Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon fire, rather, I should say. The Hermit's Peak part of this started April 6th. That was the result of a prescribed burn from the Santa Fe National Forest. That was called the Las Despensas prescribed burn. And so once that prescribed burn took off around 4:30, it was declared a wildfire. So that was April 6th. We are just one day shy of a month from there now.
Isn't that hard to believe?
It is. It's incredible. And then you go to April 19th when the Calf Canyon fire sprung up. And I really wanted to touch on, one of the last times we had a conversation like this was April 22nd. That was that Friday where the winds were just ripping through New Mexico. And maybe one of the things I wanted to ask you, Grant, was, is this upcoming weekend going to be similar to what we saw on April 22nd there, I believe it was. And that, of course, was the day that the McBride fire sparked and blew through Ruidoso, destroyed more than 200 homes, significant event. So is an April 22nd going to happen again this weekend? Maybe it's too hard to make that prediction, but I want to pose the question to you.
No, it's a good question, Chris. And it's difficult to answer, though, because in terms of wind, it's going to be similar to that, but we're going to have it more of a prolonged period. Again, we'll see wind gusts as high as 60 to 70 miles per hour. But it's very similar when it comes to severe weather, too. You can have all of the ingredients there, and you can have a fire in one place, and for one family or one part of the state, that can be the worst day of their entire life. That could be the worst fire day of their entire life. Right. Other parts of the state may just go unscathed, which we hope all of New Mexico continues to go that way. So the thing to watch for as we head into this weekend is just do your part in preventing any kind of wildfires. As simple as even just driving on a low tire or dragging chains or throwing your cigarette butt out the window. You avoid all of those things. It's more playing the part that you can to try and prevent these fires as we head into this upcoming weekend with how windy it's going to be, and then just being aware of where you are in the state, how high the fire danger is in your part of the state too.
Yeah, we are looking at video here from the Cerro Pelado fire. This was shot from Sky News 13 just a little bit earlier today, and you can see it is earlier in the day because you can see that smoke has settled into the valley, so cooler temperatures overnight allowing that smoke to kind of settle in a little bit. This is one that is near Jemez Springs, of course. This is one that is 29,000 acres, 13% contained. It started April 22nd. That, again, was that big wind day that I had mentioned there a little bit earlier. Evacuations are still in play for some areas, and we should note that we have a lot of updates about this online on KRQE.com. We do have some articles, essentially, that are basically what you could call a nuts and bolts article, where we put in the latest facts and figures and information about each one of these fires. And I can actually put that up here on screen just to give you a look of what it looks like. this is the Cerro Pelado fire is article, if you will, and it gives kind of some of that same nuts and bolts type information about how many crews are on board and what the containment is, what structures are threatened. We do know that at least 3 homes have been burnt in this fire, the Cerro Pelado fire. It has caused a lot of evacuations as well, to include in Sandoval County still, Sierra Los Pinos, Los Griegos, those areas still remain evacuated. And again, you can check out this resource here on KRQE.com along with the maps here from the Cerro Pelado fire and many of the other fires we have. And Grant, I know you had a few websites that you wanted to share because there's other resources out there where people can get a really good look at, of course, just some of the visuals, including some satellite visuals there. Yeah. Is that the one you were mentioning you wanted to start with? This is the College of DuPage?
Yes, we can start with this because they have an excellent satellite website that anybody in the public can go to. I'm not sure of the link off the top of my head.
Yeah, you know what we can do though is, again, I mentioned we have the technology. We can we can put this in, if you're watching this online, in the article called this KRQE Livestream. I'll update the article right now with this link here. But if you want to explain what we're looking at here as well.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something I've been watching over the last week or two because this is a close-up look over the northern half of New Mexico. It stretches all the way down to Socorro and almost T or C at the bottom of the screen there. But this is a live look at what a satellite would be seeing over New Mexico from space. It's kind of on a time-lapse loop, or a satellite loop here over the last hour or so, but you can clearly see the smoke emanating from those fires across northern New Mexico, from the Cerro Pelado fire burning in the Jemez, the Calf Canyon and Cooks Peak fire burning there in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains too. It's kind of 2 different heads, that northerly head bringing in some smoke and the southerly head too. And you can even see the Bear Trap fire there at the bottom of the satellite loop burning in the San Mateo Mountains just outside of Socorro. So there's so much you can see in this map here. Right. And it's been fascinating to watch too, because Chris, there's actually another on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side there, left-hand side, on the it says RGB color products.
Sure.
If you select natural color fire.
RGB color products, natural fire.
Yes, this is another one I've been watching. So this is kind of a interpretation of the satellite data, and it detects the hot spots, the infrared hotspots on satellite, and it shows you where the kind of the hotter part of the fires are burning. So if you look at the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire there out by Las Vegas, perfect. Yes, that's beautiful. You can see kind of that red area go up in heat signature a little bit. That shows that part of the fire hit something pretty flammable and is starting to gain some strength there in terms of the amount of heat it's emitting. And you can also see that in the smoke. You can also kind of see it on the southwesterly head of the Cerro Pelado fire in the Jemez, as that's kind of sparking up a little bit this afternoon. And that's pretty natural fire behavior. You know, as the winds pick up, temperatures warm up, conditions dry out, you see that big increase in fire intensity, fire heat, smoke from these fires, and they kind of die down a little bit more at night. So as we head into the next couple of hours, we're going to be seeing a lot more smoke from satellite, and obviously if you're out in it too, you're going to be seeing a lot more smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great website there, and again, we put the link to that right on KRQE.com in the article where this live stream is being hosted. It's called KRQE Livestream, Wind Fire Danger Returns Over the Weekend. So that is a really great resource and just fascinating to look at, and especially looking at the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire and knowing that, as I understand, this is now, by acreage, the second largest wildfire in New Mexico history since the state began tracking. I want to say it was in the early 90s.
1990, correct.
Yeah, incredible. This is obviously just a fire that has continued to burn with a lot of strength. And, of course, we have that's the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire, of course. I did want to also play some of the video to just kind of give a, you may wonder, of course, what is happening on the ground. How are crews working on this Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire? Because this one, as we'd mentioned, has caused the evacuation of more than 15,000 homes. That is a number that comes from the governor's office, and the governor's office updated me today saying that number comes from the CCHP fire. Of course, that's the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire. That is the latest update is that 15,500 homes have been evacuated because of that fire. More than 300 buildings damaged or thought to be damaged or destroyed. And this fire has been one of the leading reasons for Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham said just earlier this week that she was going to apply to the federal government to speak to President Biden directly to ask for this federal disaster declaration. Apparently the way these work is usually these disaster declarations are put in place after the fire has been dealt with, but since we're now about a month into the Hermit's Peak fire with seemingly no signs of stopping and that fire danger continuing, as Grant mentioned with the weather outlook, the governor basically saying earlier this week that she wanted to apply for those federal resources, which help things like watershed rehabilitation and other related firefighting resources. So the video you're looking at in the center of your screen, this is a lot of aerials that happened from, that came over from Las Vegas. We just flew over the Las Vegas area. I believe it was yesterday in Sky News 13. We're trying to get out there a little bit earlier today, but the winds certainly are always a factor whenever you're flying. And so yeah, the Hermit's Peak fire, I mentioned I wanted to give a look as well of kind of what crews are doing on the ground. And if this does work here, you'll see some visuals here essentially of the work that crews have been doing on the ground here coming up after kind of this water drop that happened in the Las Vegas area. A lot of this video was captured yesterday by our photographer Chris Dillon and also our reporter Natalie Wattis. She was on the ground out there. And essentially what you're seeing in Las Vegas is, yeah, flames essentially alongside the road in many places. But those, let me see here if I can scoot forward just a little bit here on this video here. Yeah, you can see some of the burnout operations that are happening alongside the road essentially. And so this is areas where crews are going, lighting fire to some of that fuel so that they can burn that out, and that when a wildfire, if a wildfire comes through and it is out of control, you know, there's less fuel to keep this thing going. And so what you're seeing here is just, again, yeah, some of that aerial, or excuse me, on the ground video of those burnout operations. This was happening yesterday in the Las Vegas area. And so it is really striking to see even some of this video here, because you realize just how quickly that fire creeps across the ground. If you just like study a little corner of some of these close-up shots, it's pretty incredible just to see like how quickly this stuff goes. I know there's this one shot here, and I want you to take a look at how quickly this fire creeps closer towards this firefighter here. Is that within seconds, you see like new black patches emerging on the ground, just showing this again was taken yesterday when the winds were actually a lot worse yesterday.
Yeah, you can see just how much windier it is there in the video for sure.
Yeah, it's incredible there. Another element here is just the type of air resources that we have seen come into the state. And so this was taken from the Santa Fe Fire Department. We slowed it down a little bit here to give you a good look at this. This is, as according to the Santa Fe Fire Department, this is every scooper aircraft, super scooper as they call them, every single one of those aircrafts in the United States that's in operation is at the Santa Fe airport and basically waiting to be dispatched to fly over a lot of these fires. And we know that air resources are going to be pretty, hopefully helpful over the next couple days here with fire operations, tackling these wildfires and kind of maintaining their control here. So, yeah, Grant, I mean, when you think about just the fire activity that has happened over the last month, you almost, I imagine, feel like you're kind of a broken record warning people over and over again about how bad it is. How do you balance that out? I mean, just I'm curious as a, you know, as a news person as well, balancing that out, because we know that certainly when people hear the same things again, sometimes they tune out, but you're really trying to make sure that this stuff is fresh, ever present, and that people aren't getting dull or about or what is happening. Numb to exactly.
I know, exactly. That's been a challenge every single day, trying to break up the message, to say it in a different way, to try and convey the importance of this situation. And I think part of it too is almost relishing in days like today or tomorrow and saying just how important and crucial days like today are, where we actually get a break from some of these strong winds, and it actually brings in some good news to these communities up into northern New Mexico. Yes, the fire is still spreading. Yes, there's still a little bit of wind, but it's below that threshold like I was talking about, that they can actually get out there and make some really good progress on these fires. But we've been having so many windy days.
Yeah.
And I was just saying yesterday, I feel like we should be charging the windy icon on these 7-day graphics for how much airtime they've been getting lately, because it's been so windy over the last few months. And this really is our windy time of year. Now, for most of us, the wind isn't abnormal. It's just because we've had these fires going that make the wind seem so much worse, because the impact is heightened by these winds. And so I think the message I try and get home to everybody every single day is just how dangerous these fire and wind conditions can be, and really highlighting just the most impactful days, even though every day is impactful with the wind and dry air, and like coming up with this upcoming weekend, just saying how extreme these winds are going to be, and just trying to change up the language to convey that message.
Yeah, because it's certainly, I know I was talking to my brother-in-law yesterday, and one of the things he said, he's like, man, I'm just so sick of this wind. I'm done with this wind, because it's been pretty much a straight month of really gusty days. Some days obviously have been far more notable than others, but each one of them presents obviously their own risks. Even when you don't have the really big gusts, 60, 70 miles an hour, it just still takes, it could be 20 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour gusts to really make a big difference here in a wildfire.
And the thing is too, is the wind direction that plays a major factor in it. A byproduct of the fire is the smoke, and that plays a huge role in people's respiratory health. We've been seeing that. I've been hearing that from people up in Santa Fe and Los Alamos who are just so sick of the smoke, because every morning it just settles into the upper Rio Grande Valley there, or up into the Jemez and Los Alamos, and it's extremely bad for your health too. So I know that's another big factor from these fires that is a big concern on people's minds.
Yeah, one of the fires we have not really talked about here yet, but that has seemingly become more under control, is this Cooks Peak fire. This is burning in Mora and Colfax counties, and if you recall, at one time, this fire was sort of making a lot of people in the Angel Fire area nervous because of the winds and possibly pushing it north and north and north. But since then, crews have gotten a lot of containment on this fire. It's about 59,000 acres right now. It started April 17th, so they've been working on it for, a little more than 2 weeks at this point. And 800 homes still evacuated. This is all north of Ocate. I think one of the things, too, though, to remind ourselves, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit, Grant, is that even though you see kind of some of these containment numbers that get really high and you start to get a little bit, more positive feeling about the wildfire activity here, even though as we see these containment numbers grow, all it really does take is like a significant wind event to really see that containment become threatened, to change a lot more, to dip down, far below a number that it just was at the day before. So
it's true, because you see that 72% containment or
on the Cooks Peak
fire.
There,
but that doesn't mean that every single line of that fire is under containment right now.
Right.
And all it takes is that one ember to fly away from the core of the fire and land in somewhere that's extremely dry, which at this point is all of the northern mountains, basically outside of the mountain peaks. And it can take, just that single ember to continue the wildfire or start a brand new one.
Yeah. One of the other websites you had provided over to me that we wanted to talk a little bit about was this Fire Mappers website as well. This is a great resource to be able to get a better look at not only the footprint of the fire, but also you're kind of seeing some like hot spots on this, right? And
correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about maybe this one here?
So this is, once again, those hot spots are interpreted by satellites flying overhead that are picking up on that infrared heat signature. So infrared is just basically heat temperatures, or cold temperatures. And you can see those bright red dots that are bigger. Those are the newer heat signatures that have been picked up. This can't be taken verbatim. This isn't exactly where a fire or a flame is, but it gives a general rough idea of where it's currently going, and also kind of what heads of the fire are seeing the hottest burning conditions right now. And that's kind of the way it's going to go. As you can see, that northern head up along Highway 4, it's about to enter, it looks like it's about to enter the Valle Grande there up in the Valles Caldera. And then kind of more of that southwesterly head of the fire too. So that's the Cerro Pelado fire up in the Jemez.
That's the Cerro Pelado fire there. We know that as well, this fire has led to a few things, you know, when we talk about kind of the resources that are out there. First thing being the Valles Caldera has been closed since this fire started April 22nd. It's going to remain closed indefinitely. For a lot of people love to go there, especially this type of season. I know my barber Joel is one of these guys who loves to fish up there, but it's a dangerous area right now, and not an area that they're actually asking folks to go into because that resource essentially remains closed at this point. The other element of this Cerro Pelado fire is the closure of Bandelier National Monument as well. Bandelier is going to remain closed. That just came out a couple days ago. The federal agencies have decided that will remain closed until further notice. And then the third thing to mention is the proximity, of course, to Los Alamos County and Los Alamos National Labs. There's been a lot of concern that obviously happens. It comes with the fires that have burnt in that area, including, the Thompson Ridge fire of the past. I believe it was the Cerro Grande fire burned up there.
Las Conchas.
Las Conchas, of course, being the big one. That was just the size of the Los Conchas fire was just surpassed by Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon. But again, this one being the Cerro Pelado, not as big as Las Conchas. Burning right now, as I understand it, it's about somewhere around 5-7 miles south of where the lab is at. And they have obviously had their eyes on this fire for quite some time. And of course, this map, of course, showing those dots, showing some of the newer heat signatures that come with these fires. And just to give you kind of a little bit more of a look at some of the other ones, of course, we mentioned Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon, that being a very big fire that seems to be moving a little bit more in this northwest edge and also on the southwestern edge there, and then as well towards Las Vegas once we kind of get into this area. And Las Vegas, that's one thing we have not talked about here quite yet, but is still under multiple evacuations due to this Hermit's Peak fire. So, because we know that at least 300 buildings have been damaged or destroyed in this. I believe it was at least 166 homes have burned out of this fire. Crews are on the ground in Las Vegas. You're seeing some of that video there on your screen, continuing to fight back against this one. It's just, it's sad to see it because, it's not only is it people's property, it's people's lives. Sometimes we know that the McBride fire was one of those fires that actually resulted in the death of 2 people, an elderly couple in Ruidoso. But we also just know, it forever changes the landscape around these communities. And some people, that is the reason why they live there too. So it is a sad thing to see. One thing I should just add, anybody who's just joining us, you can always use the hashtags on your screen. Hey, Chris. Hey, Grant. If you have any questions, we haven't got any questions yet, but we always encourage folks to get involved in the conversation. It is easy. You just tweet at us, or you can always send me an email. I do check my email as well. So,
well, Chris, I want to go back to one thing too, because I was noticing in that video where you were showing they were doing those burnouts, was just how extremely dry the ground was. And I was noticing that even when I was hiking out in the Sandias just earlier this week, it's just how dry the grass is. This is technically our driest time of the year here in Albuquerque and a lot of New Mexico. As we kind of, this time of year, we really rely on the snowmelt from up in the northern mountains, but you can see just how dry all those grasses are there. And we've been staying above freezing across most of the lower elevations and Las Vegas at night. So if we've had a little bit of moisture, that should be a lot greener for this time of year. But we haven't seen that. It has been extremely, extremely dry, really since this winter wrapped up. We had a fairly active end of the winter back into January, February, and even into kind of early March. But after that, things really started to dry out, and you can just see how dry it is up there.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to note too, Grant, was, I think I recall one of your tweets was something to the effect of April being the only month, and I can't remember what the time frame was, but April being a month here where we had a chance of seeing zero precipitation in the Albuquerque area. That came true, right?
Yeah, that was exactly true. We had a trace of rainfall this month or last month, but because it's just a trace, it doesn't go down as anything measurable. So we didn't see 0 inches of rain, but because of that, we still tied for the second driest April on record for us here in Albuquerque. And much of the state didn't even pick up any measurable moisture over the last month either. So the entire state is seeing dry conditions.
Yeah. We're going to stay live here for just a few more minutes, Grant, because I know you've got to go onto KRQE News 13 at 4 and get ready for that, but we'll just wrap up here in just a couple minutes. So encourage you folks, if you have any questions, feel free to send them into our area. Grant, there was just a couple other things online that you were curious about showing. This is, we've got an average temperature and then also an average precipitation. We were just talking about the precipitation factor, but which one would you want to start with?
Let's start with temperature, because I've been getting this question a lot about, and I've been seeing it on social media so much, about how climate change is affecting the fire season here in New Mexico. And there's some things you should know about. First off, we should look at average temperatures. And this is a pretty clear trend. So these go all the way back to the late 1800s. This is for New Mexico as a whole. Average temperatures from January to December, so it encompasses the entire year, and then averages, though, both the low and high temperatures. And there is a pretty clear and stark trend starting in about the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, where temperatures just start skyrocketing. And ever since about that time period, temps here in New Mexico have been averaging about 2 to 2.5 degrees above average just over that 40, 50-year period. So studies have been done, and it's been proven that obviously temperatures are warming across New Mexico. This is not some kind of decadal cycle. This is a direct correlation of climate change, and this is the way the state is going to be heading now, is our average temperatures are going to keep increasing. So it's going to keep getting hotter across New Mexico. However, if we go to the other one now, Chris, this is average precipitation across the entire state. Yeah. There's really no trend here. We kind of go on these decadal or bidecadal oscillations of seeing these wetter periods and these drier periods and these wetter periods and these drier periods, and that's going to still kind of be the forecast. You can see we're kind of towards the valley of a drier period right now here in New Mexico.
Right. And
one thing with climate change is that when here in New Mexico specifically, as temperatures get warmer air can actually hold more water vapor. So we're not necessarily going to see a drying out in terms of moisture here across New Mexico. We're going to have good years, we're going to have bad years. But with climate change, we're going to be seeing more extremes. And so because that warmer air can hold more water vapor, we're going to be seeing more extreme snow events. We could be seeing more extreme rainfall events, more flash flooding. But the bad part about that is that we could go longer between those events. And with hotter temperatures, that causes the ground to dry out more. And in terms of the winter, hotter temperatures in the spring can cause snow to melt off faster. And we even talked about this, Chris. Professor Fleck talked about this in the last podcast episode.
Yeah, we do of course have a KRQE. We've got the New Mexico News podcast, and Grant, you were a great addition to that episode there as well. But for folks who want to check that episode out as well, we'll add a link, of course, to that episode in our online article for this, and then we'll clip the video after this. If you want to check out the full conversation, put that on there is online as well. One of the things, of course, Grant, is before you go, just getting a quick recap on sort of what we can expect for this weekend, because it's a calm day here today and tomorrow, but things are going to change for Mother's Day weekend here.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's still going to get worse before it gets better. We have the break from the wind today. We have the break from the strong winds tomorrow. It's still going to be breezy. You're still going to notice the wind, but it's below kind of that dangerous fire weather threshold. So that is some good news there. However, starting Saturday, we're going to start to see this southwesterly wind return. Winds are going to start gusting Saturday afternoon between 35, 45 miles per hour. Sunday and into Monday are going to be some of the strongest wind gusts. We're going to be looking at gusts anywhere from 45 to 65 miles per hour, sustained winds anywhere from 35 to 45 miles per hour. And that kind of windy weather isn't going to leave either. We're still going to be dealing with some stronger wind gusts, again about the 35 to 45 mile per hour range, all the way potentially into the middle of next week or even into the next Thursday, a week from today. So we have a lot of wind still in the forecast, and that means we're going to be looking at very dangerous fire conditions, potentially extreme fire conditions across parts of the state, as we're going to be dealing with even drier air than what we've been used to, and some even hotter temperatures, because on Saturday we could be looking at record and near record high temperatures. And again, the difference about this weekend and into early next week is that it's not going to be like previous big wind event days where we have just one single day of very strong winds. This is going to be a multi-day event, and that's really what has us so concerned, really, as we head into the next few days through this weekend and into next week.
Right. Man, well, Grant, and again, as we're taking some video, a look here at some of the video that came from Las Vegas just yesterday. Crews have been working on burnout operations and probably expected to continue that work through the next few days. We do know that this is certainly a reprieve for them, but it's all kind of a day-to-day, and one day of wind can really make a big difference with how folks fight these fires. Grant, I want to thank you for coming here onto KRQE.com and our live stream here today. And also, just really quickly, if folks want to get in touch with you, have questions for you, how do they do that? Of course, your Twitter handle's on the screen there.
Yep, you can find me there on Twitter at Grant Tostrud WX. That's also my name on Facebook, Grant Tostrud WX. Feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at grant.tostrud@krqe.com. And I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, well, Grant, thanks again, and we appreciate y'all watching here online. We'll be back with other live streams like this in the future whenever there's something to tell you about. Just download the KRQE News app, and we will send alerts to you if you subscribe to the live stream category of alerts. And also, you can subscribe to desktop alerts if you're on your computer. You want to have the sort of notification come up whenever we're going live with this kind of stuff. But thank you for joining us, and Grant, thanks again.
Thank you.